Well, it's June Pride Month, and we celebrate the riots that happened at Stonewall in June of 1969 this month. It was the beginning of the modern LGBTQ civil rights movement. American historian and journalist Howard Zinn said, quote, "History is instructive. What it suggests to people is that even if they do little things, if they walk on the picket line, if they join a vigil, if they write a letter to their local newspaper and become a journalist, anything they do, however small, becomes a part of a much larger sort of flow of energy. And when enough people do enough things, however small they are, then change takes place and they make history," end quote. Both of these moments, the idea of journalism making history and the Stonewall riots of our June Pride Month celebration, both moments are the inspiration of History Fort Lauderdale's retrospective of LGBTQ+ life in South Florida that will be presented all month long at the Galleria Fort Lauderdale. The special exhibit honors the pioneers of the LGBTQ+ community, including my next guest today, renowned journalist Rod Stafford Hagwood. Welcome to Unapologetically Queer. I'm your host, Al Ferguson, and I'm proud to talk to some of the most interesting people that are interesting to our LGBTQ+ community. At Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, our mission is based on the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ community, and that is including the Black community, Latino, lesbian and queer women, trans, students and youth, seniors, business, social justice, and faith. We know it's June Pride Month, but some are asking, why do you need a pride parade? Or even why do you need an entire month of celebration? So let's find out. History Fort Lauderdale has a month-long retrospective called Take Pride, a retrospective of LGBTQ+ life in South Florida. And key component part of that is Rod Stafford Hagwood. He has been documenting the fascinating history of the people and places and events of the LGBTQ+ community for more than 30 years. He is being honored all month long during Pride Month as a pioneer of South Florida LGBTQ community. He has been enriching the South Florida scene with his spot-on entertainment, theater, dining, and fashion reviews and commentaries for Sun Sentinel and sunsentinel.com. As one of the first and certainly the longest-running African-American gay journalists in Florida, Rod's influential style-setting views have been in demand over the years on various media outlets, ranging from here in South Florida, Y100 Radio, to WSVN 7's Deco Drive. He's also lent his talents to CNN, MSNBC, VH1, MTV, BET, and others. Welcome, Rod Stafford Hagwood. And first off, I got to make sure I establish this. I understand you are unapologetically queer.
I always say, I'm not gay, but my husband is.
That's an old but great joke. It's always a good joke.
I've been openly gay for a long time, since middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah, I came out, I'm 60 years old, and I came out when I was very, very young.
Wow.
Growing up in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
I went to a private school for a long time, elementary school, and it was had a very large Jewish population, and it also had it was near a lot of the universities in Nashville. So Vanderbilt, Tennessee State. There were a lot of professors' kids who went to this school. So it was very liberal, and so that was not very hard to do, to come out in that kind of environment.
Okay.
However, but then I decided I wanted to be a journalist, and I convinced my parents, who were not really happy about it, that I wanted to go to a magnet school, a big public magnet school, because they had this incredible journalism program, and they had like closed circuit TVs and they would do a
In
broadcast.
Tennessee,
Yeah,
after all.
yeah, they would
No
do.
Nashville, but
Yeah,
still
but they would
Tennessee.
do this broadcast every day. They had a weekly newspaper, weekly, which was very unusual back then.
Mhm.
Back then, and so this would have been like 78, 79. I graduated high school in 81. So my point being, and I do have one. My point is that when I switched to the public school and went to this big magnet school for the journalism program, it was a little trickier. I did not know that there were so many prejudices and so many biases. I had no idea. Like I said, I grew up around a lot of Jewish kids. So when I turned 13, all my kids had, all my friends had bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, and I went to, so I didn't know, it wasn't until I went to a public school that I heard someone say something disparaging about Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck did you just say? Mm-hmm. It wasn't until then that I heard, there was a lot of anti-gay bias, of course, and all around, but it wasn't as ardent as it was until I went to public school, which was great because it opened my eyes to the way the world really is. And yeah, so I've been out for a long time, and I've been doing this really well,
so
I think.
Unapologetic over it. You know, a lot of us connected with Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out cheered the exhibit that History Fort Lauderdale was being put on, or was putting on, to celebrate June Pride Month, because you represent all of us from the journalism.
Yeah, when you were naming those categories, I thought I fit in all those.
Yes, exactly. I'm
like
curious.
Senior.
I'm curious, when you got the call from History Fort Lauderdale about the retrospective of the pioneers of LGBTQ South Florida, and you got included during June Pride Month, what did you think when you got that call?
The actual first thought I had was, this is terrible, because I haven't been a fashion editor for like maybe 15 years, but I still sometimes think that way. I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to wear? Because I was thinking, oh.
Wait, you've just proved you're unapologetically gay,
yeah.
by the way. Was there surprise for you that you would be designated a pioneer?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I was very surprised and of course, very flattered and very honored. I just kept thinking, pioneer, am I going to, maybe I should try to arrive in a covered wagon, you know, and have it being pulled by dancers from Johnson's or something.
You know, and I'm sorry, but I have to ask this question. My journalist
Sagittarius.
integrity is at play.
That wasn't it.
Pioneer might equate to longevity. I'll use the word longevity.
I'm okay with that.
And that's what I was going to ask. You were okay.
I'm very okay.
No problem with.
I have no problem with being a senior citizen now. I'm 60, as I said before, and I'm thrilled, happy, surprised, grateful that I've managed to get through my life and have these incredible adventures and incredible things happen to me. I get to travel, I get to meet interesting people like yourself.
Thank you.
And no, the thing about being, when I first got the call, I was very honored, of course, but I also thought, I wish I had done more. I wish that that there was more on my resume for helping other people in the LGBTQ plus communities. But then the people who asked me to be a part of this pointed out that over the years, without realizing it, I did, you know, and I kind of saw their point then.
Yeah, it didn't wash over you every time you're doing something for Deco Drive or you're writing for the Sun Sentinel, that just the mere visibility of you is making a statement, and the words coming out of your hand are how you make change? That didn't wash over you?
Not in the moment, no. I was so busy trying to meet deadlines. I was so busy trying to, you know, when I was doing a lot of television as a fashion editor, when I was doing so much television, I was doing so much MSNBC. People kept thinking, oh, you work for MSNBC? And I go, no, I actually don't. When I was doing that, it was, you're caught up in getting it done. But every once in a while, we would be out at dinner or something like that here in South Florida, and someone would come up to me and say, "Oh, I saw you," and it would be like, you know, a young Black person, a Afro-Latino or something like that. Yeah. And they
that's them.
Yes, and that's when it kind of would dawn on me. But no, when you're doing it, you're so immersed in it, and you're so busy trying to make sure you hit your cues, and that you have to condense everything.
In terms of the pioneer status and this exhibit, in terms of the history of our LGBTQ community, are you disappointed you didn't live more in the moment?
No, I had a great time.
Yeah. Okay.
I let's put it this way. I did things that would make Caligula blush.
Okay.
So no, I don't regret much. And
I saw that movie, and I'm blushing right now.
I didn't get arrested. I didn't serve time. There's no video record of most of the things I did. So no, I'm very pleased I got away with everything.
It's funny that you say that, because we reached out to several of your friends, and we're getting roll that. Oh wait,
no. We have all signed non-disclosure agreements.
Okay, all right. I'm curious. Been in community for a long time here in South Florida. The South Beach community. We were talking before we started about the Warsaw, which, my goodness, when I came to South Florida, it was like heaven on earth. And you live in Fort Lauderdale. We joke when we started It's Happening Out that this is the gayest place on planet Earth, and you can make a very good argument it is.
There's actually census data to back you up.
Yeah, I think I have so many friends in Los Angeles and in New York, and we go, no, not so much. No, not so much. It's right here in South Florida. I'm curious, in terms of your eye of from a pioneer point of view, history of South Florida LGBT, have you seen a lot of changes in our community?
Yes, I have, actually. And this is something else that kind of dovetails into the conversation we were just having. And that is, when I first arrived here and was very much a part of the nightclub scene, that was so important to covering the fashion world, was to make sure that you also were in the entertainment and music, and so you had to be you had to be where it happened. So you had to be in the club scene, and I can remember, whether it was South Florida, whether it was South Beach rather, or whether it was Fort Lauderdale, Boca, West Palm Beach, because I hit them all. You never really saw people of color working at the bars or the restaurants or the event spaces. You never actually saw employees that were, Black or Afro-Latino. You never saw dark-skinned people, and that has changed. And I don't know if people are aware of that, but it is a beautiful thing to see.
Are you happy, like in Wilton Manors, for example, Fort Lauderdale broadly, are you happy how the Black LGBTQ community is in our overall community? Do you think Black community is represented and recognized as clearly as they should be?
I would like there, of course, to be more, but I know we have a mutual friend, Sean Palacios, and he's very Kitty Meow, very involved with the Caribbean Pride that they put on,
right?
And
that's a Hot Spots Happening Out event.
That is,
August, I believe August 7th.
And it's just, I could not imagine that happening in the early 90s when Kitty and I were running around South Beach. I mean, I just couldn't imagine that happening. Yeah. So just that kind of event, and there are others too, shows to me remarkable growth, and that there are lots of people who recognize that it needs to happen.
Yeah.
Because Sean can't do it alone.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? So
I love that observation. I want to seed the names. One of the things I really love about the Black community is this conceptual idea of give the flowers before it's too late. Jameer Baptiste at Hot Spots Happening Out and Jasmine Rogers are the principal architects Pride Fete, and it really was intentioned. It was, we don't do enough for the Caribbean and Black community, and we should do more.
Yeah.
And that's how that event happens, and it's coming to Wilton Drive in August, which I think is great. One of the things I want to ask you about you is, when I told a number of people that I was interviewing you, we have just met first time. I don't know how that's possible, but we've just met. A friend told me that they talk about your sense of humor, and I've already gotten that in the short time that we have met. That you laugh a lot, and they told me that you are quite renowned here in South Florida about your funny memes. Is that true? You're a meme
I didn't know where
guy?
you were going with that.
Yes.
Yes. I when I have, sometimes I, like, for example, my husband and I are just watching TV. He's a real home cook, and he's really into those cooking shows and things like that. And I find them entertaining. I watched Top Chef with him. We watched it, but there was
The Great British Bake Off.
Yes. Oh,
That's it.
that's the best.
That's
the best.
There
Do you
is
know
no-
why that's the best? Because they're not mean.
Yeah,
Other reality TV
that's
shows
English.
have to have the conflict.
Yeah,
They have to have someone having a bitch fight in order to be interesting. And Great British Bake Off is just about the baking.
Yes, that's
I
right.
love that.
Yeah.
And they even help each
They
other.
help each other.
Yes.
Yes.
It's so civilized.
Netflix right now has Great British Bake Off Juniors.
Yes.
And the kids they're crying because something didn't work, but they're helping each other. At the
Yeah,
same
I love that show. But anyway, back to the point, and I did have
Humor,
one. My
memes.
point is that sometimes when we're watching those shows or something like that, or he doesn't need me to actually be involved, I will get on my phone and start posting memes or sending things to. I like to text people little things to cheer them up.
Do you think you're funny?
I think that maybe I would put it another way. I think perhaps I don't really care what other people think of me. I know other people say that, but I really don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I really don't. I have like,
So fearless.
I've got
can add humor.
$5 left, and 3 of them are promised to someone already.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I do not care. So like if someone is kind of like not feeling me, I'm just thinking, well, that's fine. I've been kind of popular my whole life.
Yeah.
And so like not everyone's gonna like you.
I'm curious,
So you just move on to the next person.
coming out of the time period in history. This is a History Fort Lauderdale event. Coming out of the time period of was humor a way to help you protect yourself?
Yes. Someone once told me, as a matter of fact, when I graduated, this is so funny. I haven't thought about this story in years. When I graduated, at my high school graduation, I threw the big party. Someone throws a big house party.
Right.
It was my house because my parents were really cool. Right. So, and I was the only child, so they were like, okay,
I bet
we only
you
have to
were
do
a
this
handful.
one. Yeah, I was. I still am. And they was like, okay, we only have to do this once, so Rod, have at it. Do what you want to do. So they let me have the party of all parties. And one of the kind of straight-laced jock kind of guys, he said to me at the party, after he had a few beers, he said to me, the reason you don't get picked on by the football team or the jocks or any of the other cliques in high school is because they're terrified of you. Because
you're sharp-tongued.
You're so, yes, exactly. He says, we're all terrified of you. And I had never had anyone actually say that to me before. Yeah. And it was something I was mindful of when I went to college. So your weapon was
your humor.
Yeah, but I was aware of it in college, so I could temper that because I didn't want people to not engage in me, right? Engage with me. But yeah, I think that humor very much helped me without me even realizing it.
Yeah. And another thing that I'm very curious about, we've talked about age, we've talked about your humor and experience. Before we talk about the exhibit itself, which is absolutely fantastic, I want you to tell me about being a journalist. If being queer has contributed to the success of you as a journalist as compared to the rest of the straight world? You're in a media that is very straight. They might be embracing and they're supportive and they're allies, but there's not queer media. How does gay and journalism intersect for you?
Well, I'm going to divide my answer into two parts, if you don't mind. The first part is when I arrived in South Florida, it was in 1990, and it was as the fashion editor of the Sun Sentinel. And I always joked then, even though it was kind of serious, that if you're going to be a black guy telling women in Boca Raton what to wear, then you better be gay. Because you're going to meet a little resistance otherwise. So that was one thing. But then...
So your gay card really helped in that.
Yes. Oh, my God, yes. And I played it every chance I got. Yeah. But on a more serious note, the other part of the answer is that you have to make sure that you are the person that everyone can come to ask questions in the newsroom. You have to make sure that you always give the best advice you can. You always make the best connection you can. If someone says, who should I talk to about video news in the queer world, you need to know who to send them to, and you need to make sure that that source is reliable, because they are going to come to you every time they need you until you mess up. You don't get second chances in this world. You do not. So if you mess up, that's it. So I take that very seriously.
I'm curious from that standpoint, in our community and in journalism, various different ways, Levin at TMZ and Anderson Cooper at 60 Minutes, Rachel Maddow, being gay, broadly, LGBT, if you want to use that definition, do you have to work harder from your eye? Is it a seat that has to do more?
Yeah, I think so, because like I said, you don't get a second chance. If you're black, you don't get a second chance. If you're gay, you don't get a second chance. If you're black and gay, you may not even get the first chance.
And I want to ask that. So you're having to work harder. And then you add black into the equation of gay, or vice versa, black and then add gay. That's like, strike one and strike two.
Yeah, but the wonderful thing about it is that my parents prepared me beautifully for this. The rest of my family did. My uncles, my aunts, my cousins. I come from, both sides of my family are incredibly loving and supportive. And they, through my childhood on up, have prepared me very, very well. They're all very, very professional kind of people. And so I always had this model of like how I was supposed to comport myself. And so that made it a little easier, because it was just something you did. It wasn't something you had to learn to put on. It was something that you woke up every morning wearing already.
I want to bring back History Fort Lauderdale is doing this wonderful exhibit at the Galleria, and Rod is one of the featured beneficiary is the wrong word, but the representations of the important history of the pioneers in our community here in South Florida. And I want to tell you something that Patricia Zahler, the executive director of History Fort Lauderdale, said about this moment, June Pride Month, and why History Fort Lauderdale would do this. She said, quote, "History Fort Lauderdale is proud to showcase the valuable legacies of our LGBTQ businesses and influential leaders who have worked to make our great city an ideal place to live, work, and play. Education and tolerance are paramount as we continue to build upon these accomplishments, safeguard our progress, and move forward to ensure that Fort Lauderdale remains a welcoming place to live and visit for all, especially during Pride Month, but then well beyond," end quote. powerful words to the importance of this time. Your incorporation of History Fort Lauderdale celebrating you and other pioneers. I'm curious in terms of the executive director's challenge of what she's saying. There's a little bit of a dog whistle in there that things are not as good right now as we thought maybe once upon a time that they would be. 2015, Obama in 2008. We thought we might have been in a different place in 23. What do you think about the politics that we're watching? Not only here in South Florida, but in presidential candidates and governors' mansions and in Tallahassee. Where do you see we're at?
Well, for every action, there's a reaction. So I knew that when President Obama was in office, that there would be a reaction to that after he left office. So I'm not surprised by that. I am also a bit of a history nerd. So, you know, I know, growing up in Nashville, I know about Andrew Jackson and following Lincoln, you know. So for every action, there's a reaction. The pendulum swings really far the other way. It's just the way it is. And it's not just this country, it's the way it is in so many other parts of the world. So I can't say I'm surprised by it. What is probably, surprise isn't the right word. What I have trouble wrapping my brain around is how blinding hate can be to just common sense. You know, just looking what's in your interest, you know, what's going to help your family. You know, I don't understand how the people that want to give you childcare, health care, and a livable minimum wage are the bad guys. Won't that help your family? I don't understand that, how you can just, yes, I don't like everything about that person, but I do want these things. So why would you not at least consider what's in your best interest? And that is, I'm just surprised, I guess, or shocked by how powerful hate is. Because it really is. I think that leftist liberal, you know, I'm not registered as a Democrat or a Republican. I'm registered as an independent. I really do try. I have some very conservative friends. I have some very conservative family members, but they never, ever considered not voting in their best interest, no matter who was running. And so I think
it's a reflection of the crazy times we're living.
Yeah, it's just, I think the left side maybe has underestimated how powerful hate is. It is very powerful. And love doesn't always win.
Yeah, love doesn't always win. Well, there's a dog whistle. Older, gay, black man in the world that we're living, especially here in Florida. Are you fearful?
No, I'm not. I'm not fearful. I am perhaps a little bit more cognizant of when I'm out, you know, just running errands or covering an event for the Sun Sentinel or coming to do a video interview or something. I am sadly more cognizant of my surroundings. And that is something that's new.
You know, it's important for us to remember our history. We've been through these times before. We pushed a pie into Anita Bryant's face because of it, and of which you were part of here in South Florida. It's one of the reasons why this History Fort Lauderdale exhibit at Galleria is so important for you to go see. You really must go and see it. It's located, by the way, near Savorsky, which I love to say that because, of course, we want to decorate our exhibit.
It's in front of the old Neiman Marcus.
That's right. You are showing your age. And this is between Macy's and Dillard's. History Fort Lauderdale describes the exhibit and in a beautiful way in terms of what you are seeing. I'm curious, one other thing in terms of what we're watching is the kind of evangelical backlash that we're getting to LGBT. Did you think that when History Fort Lauderdale decided to do an exhibit like this, honor pioneers in community, diversity, trans, drag queens, black journalists, etc., and so on. Were you concerned that there might be backlash to doing an event like this?
I did not. No, I didn't. I come from a Christian background. I'm wearing a cross under this shirt, as a matter of fact. But the thing about fundamentalism that maybe a lot of people don't know is that it is a fairly recent phenomenon here in the United States. Before the 1920s, people kind of would have been surprised if you were literally interpreting the New Testament or the Old Testament as being fact. It was understood by the zeitgeist that it was allegory. And so taking it as the literal word and fact is a fairly recent phenomenon, historically speaking. So I'm not sure if we're able to actually see where this is going yet. I can't imagine it's going to be something good, though.
Yeah. You think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
I definitely think it's going to get worse. I know it's going to get worse.
Again, why it's so important for us to pay attention to history. And the exhibit at History Fort Lauderdale is curated by Michael Murphy, the very well-known photographer, other kinds of programs. You can see...
He's well-known for many reasons, too.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk about that off air. You can also see at the Take Pride Retrospective, a photo tribute wall featuring lifestyle and significant event photos, as I said, from Michael Murphy Photography. Murphy has been capturing historic moments and memorable individuals that have shaped the South Florida LGBTQ plus landscape. The exhibit includes also the showing of Open Dialogues. It's an award-winning short film which captures the personal narratives of LGBTQ plus voices, produced by Art and Culture Center Hollywood. It's directed by Miami-based filmmaker Freddie Rodriguez, and thank you, it was funded by the Community Foundation of Broward. When you saw the exhibit and you went to the opening and you see this collection of photos and costumes and video presentation, what did you think about seeing the broad swipe of this is our history?
The first thing I thought was, oh my God, this is going to make a wonderful documentary someday. It was just so visceral. It was so visually, everyone had such style. You know, everyone had such a point of view, and they just looked like they were having the time of their lives. And I loved that. It was beautiful. It was also even the parts that weren't so positive that were represented were, I still saw strength. I don't know what...
Resilience, even.
Yes, maybe that's the better word. Yes, thank you. Thank you for helping the journalist with his word. Yeah, that is a much better word. That's more accurate. Yeah, there's resilience in the eyes. If you look at those photos and some of the video, if you look at it, you don't see defeat anywhere. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
And I remember my husband and I were kind of, before they started the program at the kickoff cocktail event, we just kind of walked around and looked at everything. And that was something I didn't expect. And you gotta remember, everyone's talking, it's a party and everything's happening, but I could still see that, it was that obvious.
I'm curious what your reaction is. Would you agree with me? The Warsaw on South Beach, the Marlin Beach Hotel, the Copa, that the vast majority of today's LGBTQ community here in South Florida have no idea what we're talking about. Is that a shock to you?
No, it's just the way it is. It's the way life goes. But yeah, I can tell you that we were having this conversation just the other night with John Castelli, the owner, the former owner of the Copa.
And by the way, for viewers that don't know, Castelli, he's coming to Unapologetically Queer. The Copa is a legendary, in America, one of the legendary 20 if there were 20 bars in America, the Copa qualifies. Madonna performed at it before Madonna was really, really Madonna.
I met my husband at the Copa. As a matter of fact, really quick story. I was interested in my husband, and I thought I asked him out, but I asked out someone who looked kind of like him because it was 3 a.m. and it was the Copa, and I got confused. So anyway, he's never let me forget that one. Yeah, it's hard to wrap your brain around all that. But I as far as this generation, they will have their own things. We had that.
Yeah.
And it was magical. Yeah. And I am so grateful that I got to be there and to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I want to come back to you in terms of history. Tell me about some of the highlights of what you're most proud of or most interested of in reporting in the last 30 years.
I will tell you because it involves you. Even though we just met. Because I hope I don't get emotional about this, but you interviewed Norm Kent.
Last one.
And I don't know if I didn't know it was his last interview, but I knew it was definitely one of his last major interviews. And I'm watching the video and watching for Norm Kent, who I loved. And he mentions me. And then he mentions my husband. And I'm watching you on YouTube, and I'm just like, did Norm Kent just give me a shout out during his
final days?
One of his final days, and he did that. He was talking about the fact that, I'm an entertainment reporter now. I do dining and entertainment and LGBTQ events, not actually policy or that kind of thing, but more the entertainment part of it. And that the pandemic had made reporters, even like me, who were on the feature side of the newsroom, we were doing some serious hard stories. The one that I think he referenced was the fact that one of the hospitals had used refrigerated trailers as kind of makeshift morgues.
Yeah.
And that was a story that I wrote. And during the beginning days of the pandemic. But it was just the fact that here he was talking to you about his life, about his world, and then he mentioned me and my husband.
Yeah.
And I was just, I don't know. I try not to. I always say I don't have emotions because I can't take the weight gain. So I get really angry with myself when I get the feels.
Yeah.
But I got the feels,
That's lovely. That's lovely. He would be very touched that you told this.
He sent me, he would be. He would be very surprised because I'm not one to get emotional, but he did send me, he sent me a lot of very inappropriate things as well. Yeah. But
we are talking about Norm Kent after all.
He did send me.
He puts Dean Trentellis in a priest outfit on the cover of SFGN. Yes, we.
Actually, Dean has sent me some inappropriate things too. Dean and I go way back as well. Dean and my husband used to go work out at the same gym. So we go way back. Anyway, back to Norm. One of the things that he did was he sent me I think it was in Facebook. I can't remember if it was Facebook or Instagram. I think it was Facebook. No, it was Instagram. It was Instagram. He sent me a message, and it was something along the lines of, keep going, be a soldier, be strong, fight the good fight. And then underneath he goes, but look fabulous. And I was like, who does that?
His hat pops into my head as you say that. A lovely story about Norm, and I was so happy. I couldn't get him to shut up. I just literally, I was going to do 20 minutes with him, and I could not get him
I did
to
his
shut up.
radio show a couple of times, and I kept saying, "Do you really need me to be here? Can we just put like a cardboard cutout of myself in the chair?"
That is a perfect Norm Kent story. It certainly is. In terms of your interviews and the people that you have been focused in your journalism, most interesting person you've ever interviewed?
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not see that coming. You know, I will say that, oh my gosh, that's a good one. Probably one of the, oh my gosh, one of the, I'm trying to make sure that okay. I think probably going back in the fashion world, some of those designers, you know, the view we have of them is, you know, pretty clothes and models and you know, getting to know them behind the scenes was very eye-opening.
In a good way or a bad?
Yeah, in a very good way. The way they present themselves is, you know, on
Who
television.
was the favorite?
Michael Kors has
really?
got one of the sickest, funniest senses of humor you've ever. I mean, just you just can't believe that this is coming out of his mouth. He's great. But you know who else is wonderful? A wonderful, wonderful human being. And I don't know why people find this so hard to believe, but Tommy Hilfiger is an incredible human being.
Terrible story.
Yes, everyone has. He's a wonderful person, a wonderful human being. And, you know, Diane von Furstenberg, you know, all these designers.
How about in your geographic neighborhood on Gianni Versace?
I'm sorry?
Gianni Versace.
I got to meet him twice. I just remembered a story.
You're going to share it?
I'm trying to figure out how to condense it. He was doing a show and he had a party in New York, and the man who is now his husband was his boyfriend then, and one of my ex-boyfriends from Atlanta was friends with them, so those two knew each other, and he came up and talked to us. We were at the downstairs part of the party before going upstairs for this performance, and he said, "Guys, go upstairs now and stand as closest to the stage as you can and don't move. No matter what they tell you, you don't move. You tell them, I told you to stand there, and you stay there." So we did. And actually no one bothered us. And then what happened was Gianni Versace came out, said a few words in the microphone. All the crowd is behind us. And then John Bon Jovi and Elton John got on stage and did a mini concert, and they were right in front of us. I mean, like, Elton John's piano was like closer than you are to me now. John Bon Jovi was like 3 feet away from me. And we're just standing there just going, how is this my life now? Why am I here in the front? But that's what I think about Gianni Versace. I remember that moment of like, okay, this is a day to remember. And then, of course, I did get to meet him again in South Beach through Louis Canales. Oh. Does anyone know that name anymore? Mm-hmm. Louis Canales is Sean Palacios and Louis were Kitty Meow and Louis were very important to me in my South Beach days. And Louis Canales, I can't remember where or why, but we were at some party and I got to meet Gianni Versace, and I got to meet his sister, Donatella, who I also ran into at a couple of gay bars in New York City, in Chelsea. Oh. She had a roped off section in the gay bar, and she was receiving visitors like a reigning monarch. You know, it was just, she was a queen among queens.
Yeah. And by the way, you've mentioned Kitty. Can I tell you, Kitty's going to watch this interview, and the only thing he's going to hear, Kitty Meow, is that you've mentioned him twice. That he's not going to hear a single word that I have said or you said, except the twice that you have mentioned.
I just hope his sister hears it. Still have a crush on her.
You know, you're talking about these experiences that you've had as a journalist. I'm curious from the lens that you tell the story, your gay eye lens of telling this story. Does your queerness help? Does it hurt?
Oh.
Does it even matter? Your experience or your career, the people you've met, the stories you've told?
I think it does. Maybe I'm not fully aware of how, but I think that people were able to let their guard down a little bit more around me because I was so vulnerable and open about things, you know, and that I just didn't get upset.
Does that mean your hurt was an opening for them to embrace you, that they felt like, or what does that mean?
I think it means that my ego appeared to be a big part of my persona until you actually met me, and then you realized, oh, that's really not who he is at all.
Oh, I see.
And so I think that...
so a perception of Grinch, but your heart was 3 times bigger. You know, it's very,
wow.
It's very interesting to me.
Wow. No, wait, you got to give me a second. Wow.
Okay. History Fort Lauderdale is doing this amazing exhibit on the history of South Florida and our pioneers, and Rod is just one of many of these stories that are told at this exhibit.
But I'm the best.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say now you're really gay, but they're all really gay. History Fort Lauderdale describes this exhibit, and if you haven't seen it yet, as follows. Quote, you will see over 100 historical photographs plus videos, costumes chronicling the growth, awareness, and struggle of the LGBTQ community through the years. Photos capture the liberation movement of the 1960s and 70s, the activism and rise of pride parades and human rights rallies, and the proliferation of gay-centric, world-famous business endeavors, including the Marlin Beach Hotel, the Copa, and Backstreet. And it seems to me that it's exciting that we tell the story of South Florida from a historical standpoint, but we also combine the great personalities. You represent journalism in South Florida. Others represent the politics. Dean is a wonderful story, it seems to me. Not necessarily because he's the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, but because in this instance and in this exhibit, he's the gay mayor of Fort Lauderdale in the exact same city in the 1970s that had a mayor that said there were no gay people living in his city. It's a compare and contrast of all of these pioneers that have contributed to our rich history. And you've contributed to that. What do you think about that?
I am really proud of that. I know I should say I'm humbled by it, but I'm not. I'm not at all.
Now you're gay.
I'm very proud of that, and I'm so happy that there's going to be, because I've seen them, I've met them. I've gone to the Miami swimwear shows. I've gone to because I do reviews of the Broadway shows that come into South Florida, the tours that come into South Florida. So I've been to these, like the fashion, I've been to the theater, I've been to these LGBTQ plus events. And I've seen these young people who have been reading, you know, me online, or they've seen my Instagram or Facebook post or something like that. And so even though they don't know what I do or how long I've been doing it or what, they know that they saw someone sitting on the front row at the Miami swimwear shows. At every show, there was someone sitting at the front row, and he wasn't security. And there was someone that was in one of the, you know, at the Broadway shows interviewing the stars. You know, there was someone that was at the event, at the fundraiser, who was, you know, reporting with all of the people who put on the fundraiser. And so they know that they can do it too because I did it. And that to me is the best part of being a pioneer, is to know that there's going to be this, when I'm done, there's going to be someone so much more talented than me that's going to come along and do this better.
Yeah.
Better. Now, will they be as good looking? Probably not. Probably not.
You are good with the jokes. It's interesting to me. That's as good.
Why is that a joke to you?
No. I was laughing along with the humor of what you were telling. It's as good a representation of Black, queer, saying why representation matters.
It does.
I think I've ever heard. You've been at it a long time. I'm going to see that back end, try to bring you back down to earth a little. 30 plus years.
Yes.
What still excites you today?
Oh, okay. I think what I've been doing a lot of dining, a lot of restaurant coverage, and it's not new to me now, but I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I am just fascinated by it. I'm so lucky that my husband Gary is a wonderful home cook. He works for Whole Foods, so we talk about food a lot. Generally speaking, I don't understand half of it, but it's been wonderful meeting these creative people in this world, which is new to me. I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years now.
The creative behind the dining.
Just meeting meeting the chefs, meeting the chefs, of course, are creative, but they're also, the restaurateurs are creative.
Mm-hmm.
The businessmen are creative. Mm-hmm. Meeting the people who design the spaces. I have the thing about fashion that people, just to go back for a second, the thing about fashion that people don't realize, it's not decorating the body. You engineer fabric. So a lot of designers, fashion designers, actually came from architecture because they're engineering. So it's so fascinating to me to meet restaurateur people and the designers for that world and see what they're dealing with and what their process is. And it's so interesting because there is a bit of science to it, and there's a bit of art to it.
Yeah.
And I find that engaging.
It is engaging. One of my favorite movies is the 100-foot journey.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I come away from that film is reinvention. And I read an article, and I think I'm not sure if it was yours, but I believe I read it in the Sun Sentinel that talked about that we will go back and look at pandemic, and that one of the industries that was most benefited by pandemic was one of the industries that took it the hardest on the chin, which was restaurants, because they had to reinvent. And it's interesting because I haven't heard anybody say the restaurateur of the business creative can be genius in terms of how we think about the chef, of course. Because
they have to tap into so many different things in the zeitgeist, the pop culture, and they bring it together, but they also have to watch the bottom line.
Yeah.
To me, it's an incredible juggling act.
Absolutely. I want to ask you quickly,
Sagittarius.
An A or B kind of question. Wilton Manors or South Beach? Choose one.
Wilton Manors.
And why?
Because I find it a lot more diverse, and the age. I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about age, lesbians, transgender, drag queens. I just find a lot more diversity there. There's a lot more body types there. To me, South Beach, everyone looks like the mannequins in the store.
Right. Okay.
Which is great. I mean, they're good looking.
We love those.
They're good looking.
We want to go home with
they're
those.
Great looking, but it's
you have to talk to them and live with them.
Oh,
later.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Another one.
And broader, Miami-Dade County, Broward County.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say Broward.
Why?
Because I'm having trouble condensing my answers. The reason I want to say Broward is because I think Broward is underestimated. This county, when you think about the population, if you are a success in Broward County, that is something, because compared to other parts of the country, there is per capita more people here. There's more money here. There's more success here. It's just kind of on a softer pedal, Other regions in Florida and South Florida really push the gas on that. At Broward, it's kind of a little bit more laid back, and I love that. I love the fact that if you can make it in Broward, you're really doing something.
I heard you can make it anywhere. And
I stopped myself. I stopped myself just in time.
No.
By the way, one of the most fascinating people we've met, Liza Minnelli and her sister.
Yeah, Lorna.
Lorna Luft.
Oh, okay.
We had a couple of dinners with Lorna Luft, and I wish I could tell you those stories, but I really can't.
Yes, right after this interview, and then I'll tell all of you what he
I can just say they involved him or she village and a balcony.
Oh, okay. History, Fort Lauderdale. You're anointed as a pioneer. Lovely. As a pioneer and the longevity of the career and what you've represented to community here in South Florida, what do you think about our up and coming LGBT Gen Zers and millennials?
Overall, I think they're wonderful. I do. I think they're wonderful. I love the fact that, despite what everyone keeps telling them, they're like, no, we're going to be woke.
No matter what.
We're going to be woke. We're not going to not be woke just because it's trendy to be, somehow a Neanderthal.
Yeah.
We're going to, I love that. I love that.
A couple of sentences, Pride Month and drag queens. Big topic this month.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
My first introduction into the entertainment world, into the fashion world, into entertainment in general, was through drag queens, because
it's art, it's fashion.
Yeah, and because when I grew up in Nashville, and I was born in Richmond, Virginia, but I grew up in Nashville, and in Nashville during that time, the 70s and 80s, the gay bars were like really, really popular with everyone. It was just a very hot place to go.
Great
and there
music, great people, great drinks,
my God,
lots of fun.
Yeah. Anyway, I won't go down that memory lane because I'll never come back. But I will say that there was a club called the Cabaret, and I got in with I knew the doorman, and they let me in underage, and I saw a drag show. And I'll never forget, there was, we're still friends to this day. Rita Ross was a female impersonator who did Diana Ross impersonations. And I still am a huge Motown fan. I mean, from the Jackson 5 to Marvin Gaye to Smokey to Commodores, Boys to Men, right. I'm a huge Motown fan. So when Diana Ross comes out of the fringe curtain and does The Boss or whatever the song it was, everything, I was hypnotized. And then I got to meet the drag queen, and I got to go backstage and got to see all the costumes on the hangers and everything. And I was just like, well, I never had an interest in doing drag. I always say I'm not that kind of gay, but I do appreciate it. I do love it. I do, as we talked before we started taping, I watched RuPaul's Drag Race. It's must-see TV for me.
It is must-see.
It's fabulous.
You got married in 2015. It became legal. You're a pioneer, longevity in our South Florida community. What do you think about the dating apps? What do you think about Grindr? I had a relationship. I had a relationship before my husband and I started dating. I had a relationship, and so that relationship ended. I always say I used to date like Brazilians and Italians. I don't mean Italians from Brooklyn. I mean Italians from Italy, from Naples. And so and then my husband is the waspiest person I've ever dated. My family is still shocked, by that. So when I was in between boyfriends, God, this story is terrible. I'm gonna have to clean this up a bit. That was the beginning of the dating app kind of thing. It was just really starting, and I tried it. I was terrible at it. I didn't know that you were supposed to lie.
I had no clue. I was like, well, they're going to meet you, so why lie? It didn't make sense to me. I guess the journalism in me, in my DNA was so journalistic that I thought, but you're going to meet me, so why am I lying? And all my friends were like, you are so stupid sometimes. You can be smart, but then other times you're so stupid. Yeah. I didn't get it.
You can't read minds, can you?
I don't read a room really well, I guess. Okay. I'm kind of like, this is me and this is the world. So if it's not in my orbit, I don't really get it. So I was terrible at it. And I had a date. We went to, do you remember the Hideaway?
Oh, sure.
We went to the Hideaway. We met because I knew a lot. I knew the bartenders. I knew everyone at the I knew every bartender in town, but straight bars and gay bars. But I knew them really. Everyone there was a friend of mine. So I thought this will be a good, safe place to go. And so the guy walked in and we sat and talked for a while. And all my friends were looking at me like, no, across the bar behind his back. No. And I was, leave me alone. So anyway, and they were right and I was wrong. He was a terrible person, just awful.
So Rod is part of this amazing exhibit at the Galleria with History Fort Lauderdale, one of many of the pioneers, as they are identifying them that you're going to learn about our South Florida LGBTQ history. And it is an amazing exhibit that History Fort Lauderdale is putting on through the entire month of June Pride at the Galleria here in Fort Lauderdale. We remind you, you've got to learn more about Rod. You want to go to his Instagram. And his Instagram handle, of course, is Rod Stafford Hagwood, and he's on all of the social media and maybe Grindr too. Are you on Grindr?
I am not on. Let me tell you something. Grindr. My husband does not think that stuff is funny at all. Oh, no, he actually no. He's not very jealous, which always bugs me that he's not jealous of me. But
yeah, you finished the opening presentation. A little bit of time has gone by to digest this exhibit. Where do you end up in thinking, my gosh, I'm part of this legacy forever?
I think if anything, if it can make someone else feel better about themselves, oh, what a blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing. I worry about people not feeling safe, about young people. I grew up in the South, a black gay kid in the 70s, and young adult in the 80s. But I never felt unsafe. Right. I never, ever felt unsafe. Yeah. I may have had problems here or there, bullying here or there, but I never felt unsafe. I never, ever, ever felt unsafe. I never felt that my parents didn't love me.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Even when they got divorced, they loved me, and to find out that not a lot of people just don't have that is so sad to me.
Yeah.
So if someone is walking through Galleria Mall and this makes them feel safer and better, and I mean, I hate to steal a line, but to know that it gets better, yes.
You're all
if
in.
That's all that,
yes.
If that's all that happens, if one kid gets that feeling, worth it.
Yeah, and I suspect before the month is out, thousands and thousands and thousands of kids are going to get exactly that. Rod Stafford Hagwood, thank you very much for joining us today on Unapologetically Queer.
Thank you.